The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Let's listen as Lorraine Lapointe, coach, therapist, educator, speaker, and founder of Head Heart Synergy, brings together another enlightened guest to inspire and motivate us to move forward, achieve our dreams and desires, so that we experience midlife awakening.
And I'm your host, Lorraine Lapointe. Today we'll enjoy another candid conversation that reveals how to bring back a sense of balance and how to find forward focus. Today, take just a few moments to join us as we explore the possibilities and the perspectives that provide us with greater inner peace, power, passion, and purpose. Because that's what I call living at the edge of fulfillment in a midlife awakening.
Well, hello and welcome. I wonder, are you ready to trust again? To give love a chance? Are you ready, or are you already, I should say, in a deeply committed partnership and you want to take it to the next level? Well, today's show is for you because we were going to welcome a guest who talks about the key to opening our heart and receiving more love in our life. And do you know anyone else who might want that? If you do, invite them onto the show. Just go ahead and tag them and invite them in. Today's guest has lots to share about how to create more intimacy in a life that you love, so you'll want to be listening throughout the show. And Brené Brown, one of my favorite authors, says loving ourselves through the process of our story is actually the bravest thing we ever do. And in this show, we'll explore how our guest does just that, because story is so important. And for those who I haven't met before, I'm Lorraine Lapointe, and you can think of me as a guide for women entrepreneurs and others with a burning desire to use their strengths, gifts, and talents to serve others. And I show how to create positive mindset that you need to feel fulfilled, purposeful, and empowered as you passionately grow your business and your life in the second half of your life. Because research shows that as our perspective changes, we get stronger. We have opportunities to make the world a much better place. And all this becomes possible once we develop our mindset fitness. And that's why I'm passionate about showing my clients how to develop their own positive mindset fitness practice so they can unlock their full potential for satisfying and having a fulfilled life. And of course, that's why my company, Head Heart Synergy, sponsors this radio and talk for TV program so we can reach out to create an inspiring, safe, and sacred space every week to explore different ways to live with greater peace, power, passion, and purpose. And today, whether you're here live or you've come across us later on, we're broadcasting in all kinds of different places and through different social media platforms. And as we enjoy this magic of technology, we invite you to engage with us. Throughout this conversation today, notice what you find interesting, or if there are things that make you go, and be sure to let us know what those are. Because the more we get to know who you are, the better we understand what inspires and motivates you, and the more we can offer interesting ways for you to find fulfillment. Simply add your comments in the chat. And our awesome show producer, Roxy, who quietly works behind the scenes, can show us your comments along with all your questions. So just put a hashtag and the word question, and you can shape the program into something that's most interesting for you. And we're so grateful for Roxy and all of her support and her leadership. So go ahead and add a thank you right now into the chat and just say thanks, Roxy, and so that we know that you're there. And a quick reminder, each week we run a contest with really cool prizes like Amazon gift cards And today's contest is sponsored by our guest. And all you do is simply listen throughout the broadcast for 5 inspirational words. And then I'll ask you at the end to put all 5 words in the chat or send them to me by email. So go ahead and play along, keep track of the words as we mention them. And then at the end of the show, put them in the chat. And I want to congratulate Erica Prentovich, who's our winner from last week's contest. So she'll receive an amazing Amazon gift card sponsored by Suzanne Tahart of artoftouch-kingwood.com, as that was our guest last week. And you've already heard the first word, so keep track of this one. The first word is love. And that's why it's good to have you here on the Edge of Fulfillment every Friday, 10 a.m. on W4WN. That's the Women for Women Network Radio and Talk for TV. We're building a fun and interactive and engaging community of like-minded people. So you're welcome to join us as well on our Facebook group called Mindfully Moving Forward. And if you haven't joined us there yet, be sure not to miss that. So after this short break, we'll connect with today's guest, who's turned her passion of supporting people to create more loving and lasting relationships into an art. And stay right here listening to The Edge of Fulfillment, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Mental fitness, the missing X factor for enhancing performance, achievement, and success. Mental fitness empowers you with the magic of 3: stabilized mood, peace of mind, deeper relationships. Time to make it happen? Grow the self-command muscle. Intercept your self-defenses. Build your inner wisdom. In less than 15 minutes a day, gain the missing X factor. Let me show you how.
Did you know video is the future on content? There are 3 good reasons why video is the future of content. Number 1, videos are often more engaging than simple pictures or music alone. Number 2, it's much easier to tell your story through video. Number 3, because we love to watch video, they go viral much faster. Hey, notice you're still watching right now. See how well it works. Next time we can play your video here instead. Ask me how. Shine online on Talk4TV and W4WN Radio.
And welcome back to Edge of Fulfillment. Let's do a quick recap. We are running a contest this week, and you've already heard one of the words. Actually, you've heard 2. Let me give you the 2. You've heard 2 of the 5 words that you'll need to put in the comments at the end of the show, but don't add them yet. So as a reminder, the first word was the word love. And you've also heard the second word too, and that's the word stories. So listen for the other words as we continue on the Edge of Fulfillment here on Women for Women Network and Talk for TV, because it's time to bring out today's guest. Today's guest is Ellen Hartson. She's a licensed psychotherapist, a life coach, a relationship expert. She teaches single women who desire to have a deep connection and yet ending up with, either the wrong man or something else going wrong, how to create a love success map. And that clears your path to a healthy, loving relationship. And Ellen also works with coupled women who are already in relationships who desire more intimacy and connection. So welcome to the Edge of Fulfillment, Ellen Hartson.
Hi, Lorraine. Thank you.
Hello.
So happy to be here.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you here today. Our loving relationships, Ellen, are such an important part of our life's purpose. I'm just curious, what got you started in this work, and how have relationships shown up in your life?
Well, 2 answers pop into my mind. The first answer, in terms of how I got involved in this, is really because of my own struggles. So, I mean, as early as I literally think I remember going back to 6th grade when boys started asking girls to go steady. Mm-hmm. And I already was noticing all kinds of like insecurities and fears, and fast forward into my 20s and just a lot of difficulties and insecurities with relationships. I learned some things that I think we're going to talk about today that really transformed my life and opened me up to learning how to have great relationships. And at that point is really when I decided I've got to help other people with this, because it changed my life dramatically. And then the second reason is that I truly believe, in terms of my philosophy of life, that we are here to learn how to grow in relationship and love. Like, that's our life purpose.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I wonder how many of our viewers and listeners can relate to what you were saying about good morning, Erica, and congratulations for winning our contest last week. I wonder how many of our viewers, and maybe they can put a comment in the chat, if they, about grade 6, because I can remember grade 6 and thinking I needed to have it all together in relationships. And looking back, I had no idea. So can you tell us a little more about how that all unfolded for you?
Sure, absolutely. So what I remember in those earliest moments was that I actually had a belief, and I've come to call these stories. So I had a story that men, well, at the time, boys, weren't going to be interested in me. They didn't want me. And I think that where that came from is a variety of factors, but predominantly, we all have these early experiences in life. And my mom was pretty critical. And I do remember her telling me at the dinner table, because she was commenting on my table manners. She says, no boy is ever going to ask you out because you have terrible table manners, et cetera, et cetera. So I had these messages. I had this belief. I had this story already when I was young, that boys aren't going to be interested in me. And then, of course, that turned into men aren't going to want to ask me out. And the more we believe something, the more we actually create it in our life.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, how it started. And then it got reinforced. It kind of loops and loops.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many women who were, young girls then, walking around feeling like I'm not enough. Or
Exactly.
I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not, whatever the enough is.
Right. And it really boils down to not good enough in whatever ways. And then we feed ourselves. When there's a general sense of not enough or not good enough, then we fill in the blanks with the obvious. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not smart enough. Whatever it is that we think is desired, we come to believe that we must not be enough. But it starts with that early belief of not enough.
Yeah, Dana Lynn's saying that she's looking back and she sees the same. It's amazing how the brain works too. I mean, we think that, our brain's not listening, or no one's listening to me.
That's one of my old stories too.
Yeah, that was one of my old stories as well. But what I've come to understand is your brain is listening to you every moment of every day. And it only has one function. And that is, if you say I'm not enough, well, then it will go and find evidence to show that that's true.
Exactly. Because our brains are actually kind of like computers, and they get programmed. And they get programmed when we're pretty young. I remember hearing once that 80% of the way we see the world is set by the age of 8. Now, we now know it can be changed. We used to think it was like permanently hardwired. Now we know that there's neuroplasticity, we can change it. But before 8, we have these programs running on how things work. And the programs are developed at a time when we don't even have the cognitive ability to understand what a lot of things mean. So here's a little.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more. Like, this is fascinating, I'm sure, because this is the work that I love to do. So tell us.
So, like, the example that popped into my head was, so if you're in a family and let's say your mother is dealing with a difficult marriage, okay, and you're a young child, you don't understand the intricacies of adult relationships, but what you understand is that my mom is sad all the time. My mom's not paying attention to me. She doesn't seem to have time for me. So what do you make that mean? You make it mean something about yourself. So we develop these stories and beliefs based on a pretty egocentric view. We make everything mean something about us when we're little, because that's how our brains work.
Yeah, I remember my mom making comments, and of course, not understanding the context of the adult world and
Right.
assuming that the comments were meant for me, about me. And they were
Absolutely.
actually the fundamental basis of a lot of heartache that I caused myself, but through
Not
no fault of my own. Because when you're
exactly.
little, you don't make the connections in the adult world, right?
No, no, we don't understand that. I didn't even begin to understand until much later in my life that my thoughts could actually be untrue. I just assumed if I thought it, of course, that was reality. But it turns out it's not. As a matter of fact, I sometimes say the 5 words that changed my life the most were the words, it maybe it wasn't actually true. Maybe it wasn't actually true. Yep, those 5. Maybe, like the fact that men didn't like me or didn't want me, maybe it wasn't actually true,
Oh.
but I was making it true. By the way, I like to say by who I was being.
Mm.
Okay. So just going back to the theme of creating more love in our life, who I am being is one of the key factors. Okay. There's 2 key factors to creating more love in your life. Who I am being, not the other person. And who I am being is going to be directly related to what I believe, how I was programmed, or my
Mm.
story, right?
So, what if I'm hearing what you're saying? If we want more love in our life and we want deeper connection, we it really starts with us.
100%. 100%. I always say the biggest obstacle to love is our own mind, what's
Oh.
going on inside of our brain. Because, like I said, we have these stories. I actually call them love stories when it's our stories about ourselves in love, relationship. We have other stories too. We have money stories, we have work stories. But today we're focusing on our love stories. So if my mind believes I'm not wanted, I'm not good enough, then who I am being is going to directly relate to that. Here's an example I've noticed more recently in my life, I've been working on. An old belief I had, you and I both kind of laughed about this a minute ago, was I'm not heard, I'm not listened to, I'm dismissed.
Oh, yes.
Because that was my experience in my family. So, who I am being in my marriage today sometimes is very demanding. You better listen to me, right?
Oh,
Because when
yeah.
that old thought comes up and I start being a person who feels or believes that she's not heard, I show up differently and not in a way that creates a lot of love. You know?
Because sometimes, if we think about a child, mommy, 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 mommy,
Right,
I'll experience that for those of us who've
right,
had children. And
right.
as a principal, I experienced a whole school of that
Oh my
sometimes.
goodness. But what if it
But
wasn't really
yeah.
true? What if the reason that my husband left the room wasn't because he doesn't care about me or doesn't want to hear me? What if the reason was something entirely different? What
Oh,
if it was that he was starting to feel upset and angry and he didn't want to take it out on me? What if it was actually a loving gesture?
well, that
Right?
changes the whole perspective, doesn't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
And you've actually already mentioned our third word today, so I'm going to throw that out there for our listeners, and that is the word mind. So what I heard you say just now was that you can tell yourself a story, and when you believe your story, it creates an emotion or a, a perspective, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So the perspective of, you see him walk out the room, and
Mm-hmm.
your story is he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And what you've said is that perhaps he walked out of the room because he does care, and he doesn't like he's not he's not in his best frame of mind.
Right, right. But who
Yeah.
I am being, I still get to choose who I'm going to be. Let maybe he needs to go in the other room and be whatever. That's his business. Um, Maybe he's angry, maybe he's upset, whatever he is. But I can still, if I can change the story in my head, I can still keep my heart open and be in a place of love. I can even be aware that I don't like it when people don't want to listen to me or hear me, that's okay. I can have what we call, a negative feeling about that. But if I'm aware of what's really happening in the present and how that relates to the old story, then I get to choose who I'm being in that moment. And I want to be that adult who understands that in adult relationships, sometimes people need a break or a timeout. Not that child who was always shushed and dismissed and wants to have a temper tantrum and say, you better listen to me now.
Exactly. And I mean, children don't know any better. They're little scientists. They try all kinds of things to get what they want. And if their need is for attention, I mean, some of it might be those, temper tantrums. Some of it might be, they like I said, they try all types of things. So,
right. And we don't blame them. We don't blame a toddler. We know a toddler's going to act like that. One of my teachers says an unmanaged mind is like a toddler with a knife. Isn't that great?
Say that again. An unmanaged mind is like a toddler with a knife. And there's Erica says the mind is the most important self tool and language is the second. And Leslie mentioned, love the question, what story am I telling myself right now? Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that question. So if we're not, we don't let a toddler run around with a knife. It's our responsibility to pay attention, right? So it's the same thing within ourselves. It's my responsibility to pay attention to what's going on in my mind. Because if I don't, that knife can be dangerous.
Well, and I know our listeners know this already, but I do parts therapy with a lot of people, and we have more than, like, we look in the mirror and we see one reflection. We assume we're one person, but we're actually a creation of many parts, and some of those are little toddlers.
Oh,
I'd never considered them running around with a knife, but you're absolutely right. And you've triggered a story in my mind, and I have a confession to make. Because this morning, my partner was sleeping in a little bit, and when he got up, I asked him to finish my coffee for me, like finish making my coffee, and he made this sound like, yeah. And my story was he didn't want to do that for me, and I felt a little bit miffed, and so I snapped at him and apologize now for doing that, because the story I told myself is he didn't want to make my coffee. The reality was he was just getting up, and that's what he said. I'm just getting up. I just don't take it personally.
So what if it wasn't true?
It wasn't true at all. We could have had this massive, disagreement over something as trivial and silly as that, but it was my story. Mm-hmm. And my feelings triggered by my story.
Exactly. So would you mind if I go back for a minute to something we started with at the very beginning? Because you just triggered this idea in my head. The idea that for a long time, for over a decade, I had the story and the belief about men aren't going to want me or be attracted to me. And what we can do with that when we decide to try on a different story, like you just did. You just tried on this different story. So when I went through that when I was younger, and really for the first time had that question, what if it wasn't true? What if I was actually creating the results? Because I had all this evidence in my life to prove it was true. I wasn't having a lot of success and I wasn't dating very much. But when I figured out that I was creating that with my story in my mind, I now had the option to try something different, to show up differently. I've referred to like who we're being is how we create love. So I tried being, and you have to take this in gradual steps sometimes, but I tried being a woman who maybe was desirable or who men might be interested in. And would you believe it? I got different results. So I actually didn't really start dating till my late 20s.
That's a mic drop.
Yeah.
I tried being something else.
And again, I tried it on like a new dress. I tried it on, and I had to, like I said, I had to kind of take it in steps up a ladder. I couldn't go from every man will want me now, because I didn't believe that. You have to try on things that you actually can believe in that moment. So I found what could I believe? Well, I could believe the idea that There could be. Well, actually, I was actually able to believe that there are some men who seem to like me. I
Out
have
of
some desire.
billions of men on the planet, there could be one or two.
Right. Sometimes we start there. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, this is a fascinating conversation, and I need to take a break, but I'd love to leave our watchers and listeners with the thought of what stories are you telling yourself that maybe the story is not true.
Yes.
Those
Love
five
it.
words. And we'll be right back on the Edge of Fulfillment here on W4WN and continue our conversation then.
Mental fitness, the missing X factor for enhancing performance, achievement, and success. Mental fitness empowers you with the magic of 3: stabilized mood, peace of mind, deeper relationships. Time to make it happen? Grow the self-command muscle. Intercept your self-defenses. Build your inner wisdom. In less than 15 minutes a day, gain the missing X factor. Let me show you how.
And welcome back to the Edge of Fulfillment with our guest, Ellen Hartson. And Helen, we're talking about creating more love in your life. And I'm wondering if this is a good time, because our conversation gets so rich, to do our oracle card pull and see what the cards have to say about that.
I love it.
Are you okay to do that?
I would love that.
All right. So I've got my cards here, and I'm just going to shuffle them. And when you say stop, I'll just grab the top card and we'll see what it says.
Okay. Stop.
All right. Oh, interesting. This one says, I'll hold it up. It says Divine Matrix. So let's find out about the Divine Matrix. It says, do you ever wonder how synchronicities have come together? We can get trapped in an idea, a story,
Yeah.
that the world is a place of separate parts with space in between. But you are not separate from what it is that you desire, because everything is intrinsically connected. Even that which you have not yet observed as part of your life experience is still connected with you, which means even that which you have not yet observed as part of your life experience is still connected to you. If you,
Who you are becoming.
yeah, you don't live in a vacuum. So you're surrounded by a multitude of realities that were brought to life by others, but you're being invited to be conscious of the pattern that you are weaving. So much of what you were saying about being conscious of maybe it's a story or not the right story or not the truth. You will see evidence of the truth of the divine matrix today, because what you see and what you say and what you do matters.
Wow.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah. And you know what that reminds me of? I took 2 words out of your last sentence, divine truth. And that reminds me of creating your new love story. You have to find the divine truth of who you really are. The old story was never true. It really never was who you are. So how do you find the divine truth of who you are?
I don't know. I'm curious. Do tell.
Okay. Well, the way I like to do that, and you and I both, we're very similar in our work. We've been working many, many years as therapists, talking to people and searching for what are the most powerful ways to bring on transformation. What I have found is that the most powerful way is to get out of our left brain, talking, language, get into our right brain a little bit. Are you familiar? Have you ever heard of Belarus Naparstek?
No, do tell.
Actually, you'd like her work a lot because I know you're involved in hypnotherapy and stuff. So
Can you say that name again?
don't ask me to spell it though. Belarus and her
Belarus.
Naparstek, Nap. I think it's Erstak or something similar. It should be easy to find. She has tons and tons of guided imagery, audios and videos out. She wrote a book called Invisible Heroes. She did a tremendous amount of research with PTSD, a lot of it with vets about trauma. And here's why I love her work. What she found out is that the talk wasn't helping them as much, but when they went into guided imagery and used all 5 senses, they achieved transformation and healing. Okay, so she puts out all these different audios on dealing with trauma and different things. So what I like to do in my work, I do this with myself, I do this with my clients, is we go into that deeper place inside ourselves. We connect to self. And, when you start out, it's helpful to have somebody walk you through it. So let's say I walk them through and we go into the different parts, actually, now that I think about it. We go into that wounded part, okay, that younger, I call it sometimes the smaller self. And then we connect to that divine truth inside ourselves, which is, it comes from a combination of listening and centering in our own strength. So like every person listening right now, you can ask yourself, at this current age I am today, what is one of my greatest strengths? Boom, first thing that comes to your mind. So let's say for me, I'm compassionate. So I take one of my strengths that I know I have today, which is compassion, and I really center in that sense of compassion. And from that place, I ask, again, for this divine truth of, who am I really? And in this guided imagery where I'm connected to my smaller self and to, again, it's more of a right brain thing. I'm not in analysis and language, etc. I find the answers. It's not like I hear a voice saying the truth of who you are is a beautiful person, but we come to hear, like, so for me, and I already told you what one of my old love stories was, what I came to know through that type of work was that I am wanted, loved, and cherished by the universe, my beloved, and all of life. I think that was one of my healing statements. Now, I wasn't married at the time, but I still knew that my beloved was out there and would love and cherish and adore me. And he does today.
Awesome. Well, and really, when we look outside of ourselves for that to be cherished, to be loved, to be wanted, to be heard, we're really putting ourselves at risk for disappointment and that the whole negative thing, because what we need to do is do that for ourselves. And I hear that from what you were just saying.
Right, we find it
inside and connect with your divine self, and find your divine truth. And John there was a comment that just popped up, and John said that often when he gets cards read or cards pulled, that comes up for him. And I think that it's a beautiful card for today, the divine matrix. And as you said, it's the divine truth about love.
You know what else I liked about it? It talked about synchronicity. And I feel like you and I here today, and with the listeners, there's like a synchronicity. We can all relate to the same thing. We're all looking for the same thing in a way, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, and I would love to hear from listeners. I think we're all, if you peel back the layers of our wants, our desires, and all of that kinds of thing, that truly what we're looking for is love.
Creating more love, right?
Well, and I have a really, I'd love to get your input on this. I have a definition of love that that guides me. And my definition of love is to be acknowledged and to be accepted.
Mm.
And whether that acknowledgement and acceptance comes from others or whether I have to remind myself to acknowledge and accept myself.
Mm.
But for me, that when you define love, that's what love is. And as you said at the beginning of the show, the top of the show, being seen and heard and valued for who you are.
Mhm. The truth of who I am.
Yeah. So tell me, have you ever have you ever made a huge mistake in your life and it's been sort of like the best mistake and it's turned things around, especially related to relationships? Can you think of any?
Oh, I've made so many mistakes. I have to really think about that one. Well, okay. Here's one of the things that just popped into my head. So I also used to have the belief that I had a bad picker, that I was terrible at picking men because I would pick the wrong ones or broken ones or unavailable, etc. Okay. So when I first got together with my now husband, we kind of pushed each other as buttons and triggered each other in some ways. Like I was talking before about um, me not feeling heard.
Yeah.
And one of his triggers was feeling attacked. So when you feel attacked, what do you want to do? You want to leave the row, right? So we were kind of like triggering each other. And so my mistake was, we actually did break up a couple times at the beginning, was thinking, this will never work because we have issues that are in conflict. But what I came to learn, and if you're familiar with the work of Harville Hendricks, he has a beautiful book about this, that really two people who come together and push each other's buttons is part of what we're meant to do in relationships so we can grow together. It's not my job to heal him. It's not his job to heal me. But if we are both willing to work together on this path, then that's part of the purpose of being in a relationship, is to support each other through that growth and to continue to grow ourselves by being triggered and having our buttons pushed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what you're saying does make sense. And I wonder, is that connected to the love success map that we talked about at the beginning of the show? Does that have a connection?
I think everything has a connection. So I'll just tell you really briefly what the love success map is. It's a 6-part. It's actually looks like a treasure map, and it's got 6 different sort of places you go on the journey, and they relate to the 6 modules of my course that I teach. So for example, one of the modules is actually called rewriting your love story. One of the modules is like showing up as the future you. Going back to the beginning, the modules are really about going from victim to empowerment in how we see the situations. So yes, the connection is that the love. So on each sort of destination on the journey of the map has like a little checklist. So once I realized maybe that my thoughts co-create my reality, I can move to the next destination. You kind of check them off all along the way. So yes, when you begin to realize that just because somebody triggers you doesn't mean that you have to show up in a negative way, that you can still be creating love from that place, then you kind of check off that destination on your map and go to the next one.
Well, and Erica just mentioned the word respect too, and I think that plays into it as well, Erica, because I think it's important to respect that your partner is not there to fix you, but your partner's challenges with you can actually be a gift, and that's what you were saying. Your husband's challenge and your challenges at the beginning of the relationship were a gift.
Exactly. And I think that's what Harville Hendricks says in his book, that they are gifts that allow us to do our work.
And I just realized that we had the 4th word just now. The 4th word is map. So for those of our listeners and watchers who are keeping track, we've had mind, love, stories, and map. And we just have the fifth word, which I'm sure we'll mention in just a few moments, because really, you know, what I'm hearing you say, and I'm going to say it because it's so, it's just there. We are the creator of our life. The good,
Absolutely.
bad, the how we approach it, and that's actually our fifth word. So now we've had all five: mind, love, creator, map, and stories.
Can I say one other thing about creator?
Please.
So I mentioned the two keys to creating more love in our life. One is working through our old stories. Two is who we are being, right, in our lives. And if who we are being is a creator of love, then that's how we get more love in our life. We take responsibility. I'm going to create more love. I'm not going to wait for my partner to love me more or treat me in a certain way. I'm going to recognize the power I have within me to create it. And then guess what happens? All the people I come in contact with, including my partner, they start stepping up.
Oh.
Right? So if I'm putting out more love, what kind of response do you think I'm going to get back?
Well, and how powerful is that? That's so empowering to step into that, knowing that you can get more love simply by choosing to be that way.
To be more love. Yep, absolutely.
Well, this
You
is
know,
so beautiful, Ellen.
okay, I'm going to tell you, this might sound a little silly, but it's a little experiment I had my students do one time. And I said, okay, this is go into Starbucks and just do your regular thing. If you're an introvert, you just kind of go in, you order your coffee, you leave, whatever. Okay. And then the next day, soon after, I want you to go into Starbucks with a completely different mindset. Just, I actually gave them a little guided imagery to do before they went in, just where you're just filled up with the sense of love. And you love life, love people, love the day, and go in there and smile and just be that, sort of beacon of love, if you will, and see the difference in how people respond to you. And they were blown away. I've done it myself. It's fascinating. And even as an introverted person, I was astounded to find how many people wanted to talk to me and how comfortable I was talking to them because I was showing up differently.
Well, and that is super powerful because as an introvert, I mean, sometimes and I consider myself to be fairly introverted. Sometimes we think we don't want people to talk to us, that we're better on our own, that, I don't need to ask for help. I don't need to connect with others.
Mm-hmm.
Underneath it all, what we all crave is that connection. And so you've just outlined a beautiful way to connect.
And maybe what you're talking about is like protection, like a wall of protection almost. I don't need to talk to other people because maybe I'm hiding or a little bit afraid. Maybe I'm protecting myself.
Yeah.
But when we learn to let down those walls, we let more love in.
Well, and somebody once said to me that when we're beaming love out of our heart to others, then we're actually preventing the negativity from coming back in. Because, when we're focused out,
Yeah.
then we're not telling those negative stories. We're not creating those negative stories.
Right.
Sorry, I missed the comment. Roxy, can you? I think Angeline had a comment. Oh, that she can so relate to this. That's great, Angeline. Yeah, thank you, Erica. Well said, Ellen. Yes, well said. And we only have a couple of minutes left of our show, unfortunately, because I feel like I could keep talking to you all day.
I know.
Is there anything that you would like to share with our viewers or listeners that you haven't been able to share at this point yet?
Nothing comes to mind other than just kind of going back again and reinforcing this concept of the love story. I want our listeners to all do a little exercise and try to figure out, what is your love story? What are those old beliefs And again, they could go back really far, that you have, okay, so a love story is usually a belief about yourself in love, or, in relation to love and partnership, a belief about men or women, depending on who you are interested in. And the third is your beliefs about life in general, in terms of your possibilities for love. So what is your old story? And then for bonus points, can you find a deeper, more divine truth about who you really are? What is really true? And then can you show up differently by trying on the new belief?
Yeah. And that's really the root of our mindset fitness. That's really when we do those sorts of things and we understand who we are being. Exactly. That is mindset fitness.
It's all mindset. That's why we're such a good fit, you and I.
Yeah.
Teachers.
Yeah, that's so good. So if our viewers and listeners want to get a hold of you because they want more of your goodness, how do they do that?
Well, I think my website is scrolling down there. Yeah. So they can go to my website. They can sign up right on the front page to get my little occasional articles that I send out and wisdom and tips. They can also contact me through their email. They can email me, ellen@ellenhartson.com too, if they have any questions, or isn't there someone's going to have to get in touch with me for a prize, right?
Yes, they are. So, and actually, this would be a really, great time to put those five words in the chat. Go ahead and put them in. And for those who may have missed one or two, they were mind, love, creator, map, and stories. Those were our 5 inspirational words for this week. And so go ahead and put those in the chat for as a ballot, or you can email them to support@headheartsynergy.com with the word contest in the subject line so that I can more easily find your entry. And I want to thank you so much, Ellen, and all of our listeners and watchers this week. And I hope that if you haven't joined us in our Facebook group called Mindfully Moving Forward, you are more than welcome to join us there and continue the conversations about love and about creating the love that we want in our lives. And I want to thank you so much, Ellen. It's been such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Lorraine. I've enjoyed this immensely.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again.
Yeah. You can tell I like talking about this subject.
I think it's one of the most important subjects in the world is feeling loved and connected to who we are being. Yeah. So thank you for all of your wisdom that you've shared. And I am your host, Lorraine Lapointe, and I'm reminding you that you are watching At the Edge of Fulfillment. And at the edge of fulfillment, there is a choice. You can stay on the edge and get what you've always got, or you can become courageous and move beyond the edge to get what you really want and what you really desire. And we'll see you again next week here on Edge of Fulfillment.
Let's listen as Lorraine Lapointe, coach.
Next week already.